As I mentioned, my name is Yishai. I will present myself briefly. 6 years ago, I was one of the 3 founders of a startup company in education technology that you may have heard about. It's called CodeMonkey, and we had a vision on how to create a game-based learning platform where children will be able to experience and learn coding from the fundamentals and all the way up. That platform has since then been created and evolved and reached millions of learners around the world, raised some money, became a break-even and then a profitable business. And last year, we were acquired by TAL Education Group from China, which is, in certain terms of market capitalization of public companies, it is the largest education company, not only in China, but in the whole world. So we're really proud of that achievement coming out of the EdTech scene in Israel. So we will see 4 examples in which startup companies meet the needs of the digital learner. And what do we mean by that? What is that digital learner? So we heard in the earlier sessions this morning on how there's a need not only to update the content in the classrooms, but also to update methodologies, to think completely differently about what a learning experience is. And I believe, and I think that resonates with a lot of what we heard here before, is that education systems, there is a lot of EdTech out there. There are a lot of thousands of tools, perhaps, that are available to the education systems today, and yet they are still seen, by and large, as a tool to do more of the same rather than a completely new experience. So if you're familiar with the SAMR model, they do substitution and augmentation, but not necessarily modification and redefinition. And what we want to see here today is some examples on how that is modified and redefined. And I'd like to suggest, being somebody who came from the world of startups, at least in the last 5 to 6 years, that this happens very, very naturally in a startup environment, and that's why we chose these 4 examples to come from the startup world. And that doesn't necessarily mean only a venture-backed company. It could be a corporate in-house startup. It could be a spin-off venture, but it has to have that startup culture. And I think in the CodeMonkey example, I can testify for the fact that we didn't go and model and analyze and research things in theoretical frameworks that I'm not saying are not unimportant, are very important. They cause that transformation. But to us, in the startup environment, that happens very naturally. We envisioned that product without relying directly on that theory, because that's how things are done in the startup way. It happens iteratively with the field and with a lot of participation from the actual users in the startup methodology. And these are things that we absorbed as a startup that grew up in the MindCET/CET framework in one of their ways to foster innovation, which is the MindCET Accelerator that we had the privilege to be part of 6 years ago. And so each one of the 4 examples that we're going to see now have been or are enjoying one of the ways in which CET or MindCET supports and fosters that kind of startup innovative thinking, methodology, and creation. So without further ado, I'd like to call up, the chairs are ready, so I'd like to call up our 4 participants for this session. Each one is going to present what they're doing for a few minutes. So I'd like to start with Dr. Rami Marelly from Plethora. Magen from Data Playground. Vicky Weiss from BAGROUP. And last but not least, Cybint. So we've seen in recent years, and CodeMonkey, I personally have been part of that movement, the importance of coding, computational thinking, robotics, electronics, logic, analysis. All of these things are becoming, or have become, let's say in the last decade or so, very, very, let's say, trendy, have taken a lot of space in the EdTech innovation world. But a lot of it has to do with coding per se, as we were doing. And I think what we're going to hear next that Dr. Rami Marelly is going to present us shows us a slightly different angle to approach that world in a very, very unique way. So please, Rami Marelly, Plethora.
Good morning. So my name is Rami Marelly. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Plethora. Very excited to be here. So we are a young startup, but we have already nearly 100,000 students practicing Plethora. We've been selling in Israel, in Pacific Asia, and we're growing very fast in the world. And the most interesting and exciting reactions that we get is from people saying, I didn't see anything like this before. So what is Plethora? Plethora is a joint cooperation with the Weizmann Institute of Science and with MindCET. It's a platform that develops the problem-solving and computational thinking skills for children. And actually, it's a very good example for this conference in terms of human-machine pedagogy, meeting the needs of the learner in the digital area. So before I go on, this is an example of the game. So you can see the screen here. It has one circle, and the goal is to reach 10 circles, 10 blue circles. And the students need to fill in cards to fill in the rules. So the system will behave according to the rules. In this case, when a blue circle meets the frame, then a new blue circle is created. And you can see here the blue circle meeting the frames, and more circles are created, and the job is done. So why are we unique? We focus on thinking and planning and not on coding, meaning we're independent of coding syntax, which makes the learning experience much more intuitive and removes the obstacles of kids being frightened or unwilling to program or to code. We're also scenario-oriented and not object-oriented. This is something I'd like to explain with the following example. Suppose I would like you to turn on the light with a switch. In the object-oriented approach, what you do is you would create two classes, implement all the details, and somewhere you have to decide whether you want to check if the light is on or off. It could be either in the switch or in the light, but does it really matter? We're saying that no. When you're talking about cause and effect, you can work only with saying when the light switch is pressed, if the bulb is off, turn it on, otherwise turn it off. So this is the scenario-oriented. We're talking with natural language. So our language is visual, and it introduces all kinds of computational concepts within it. I'll show it in an example. This sentence says that when a red circle is clicked, introducing cause and effect and user interaction, then if the number of triangles is greater than 4, introducing conditional flow and logical operators, then all the red circles disappear, meaning introducing a multiplicity, and then a small green square is created 6 times, introducing here both parallelism, objects and attributes, and iterative thinking. So what does our platform include? We have 14 pedagogical concepts. For each one of them, we have more than 30 levels with which the kids can play. We have a Plethora Studio, which is a level editor, where the kids, after learning all the subjects, they can create their own levels and then share it with the friends so their friends can solve the riddles and have social interaction. We have lesson plan for teachers, and we have a teacher dashboard with which the teacher can monitor the progress of the students. We've been selected by the Ministry of Education to be the leading platform for grades 5 to 9 in the last Cybint championship, and we had almost 60,000 students playing. 47% of them were girls, which is an amazing number in terms of engagement with girls playing computer games. Recently, we had a research validating our pedagogical approach. It was conducted with 250 students in 12 classes, asking 9 questions which were not relevant to Plethora. It were outside of the scope of Plethora. An example question was something like, there are 2 pairs of animals needing to cross the river, and for one of them it takes 1 hour, for the second it takes 2 hours. How much will it take for both of them to cross the river? And it appears that many kids answer 3 hours, because parallelism is something that we're not born with. The results were very encouraging. It looks like practicing Plethora results in much better achievements. Long exposure time builds the competency, and children were not afraid to approach problems, even if they didn't know the answer. And the knowledge that was gained through Plethora was transferred to other domains.
Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome next Ran Magen. We've heard in the previous sessions about how important data and data literacy is. Let's hear about Data Playground. Ran, please.
Thank you, Ishai. As Professor David Weinberger mentioned, we live in a chaotic and complex world where there is a flood of information and data. We as educators need to provide kids with the ability to make sense of the complexity of digital information and become digital and data literate. Data literacy is the ability to collect, manage, evaluate, and apply data in a critical manner. Data literacy becomes a critical skill for generating new knowledge, decision-making, problem-solving, and to promote our objectives in this data-driven world. Or in other words, to understand and act in the world better prepared. According to the OECD, digital literacy became an essential skill such as physical health and mental well-being. And if you take a look at the research of PwC, we see that there is a need of data literate employees in 2021. So how can you promote a development of data literacy to our students? We took the challenge in our R&D program, and we developed an initial concept called Data Playground, an innovative platform to develop data literacy skill for middle school students. The platform enables students to explore real-world data sets through a game-like environment, acquire new knowledge, and discuss about their findings with their peers. So how it works, we have two modes of the platform. The first one is Explore. In the Explore mode, the students have a variety of topics like cinema, Olympics, music, countries, and many more. Each student chooses the subject he would like to explore, for example, cinema. And behind each subject, there is a data set, a really Excel or CSV file we took free from the internet. And they can explore the data set through our platform. The students can write a research questions above and explore the data through by dragging the parameters. You can see the box of the parameters. The box of the parameters, sorry. The student writes his research question, and in the left box he writes his findings and answers according to his research and the parameters he explored. The system automatically takes a snapshot of his graph, and he can share his findings with his friends. This is a real shareboard from one of our pilots. The discussion about the findings is a critical phase of the learning process where the teacher has a significant role in this phase. The second mode is the game-like. In the game mode, the platform automatically generates questions about the specific data set and provides a current individual learning path and process for each student. Through the learning process, they earn badges for their progress in the specific research field and for their data literacy capabilities. In our solution, we focus on the big question, the ability to understand graphs and to develop new knowledge. We're not focusing on the manual calculation of the data. If we go back to the OECD report, today's students need to practice also the ability to be agents of influence within the educational process. Therefore, we want to connect the platform to real government data and real-world problems in order to motivate the students to explore data of their own hometown, their country, and the society. Moreover, there is an opportunity to connect the industry through a real data samples for companies and organizations and reduce a little bit the gap from the labor market. Thank you very much.
I'd like to emphasize the fact that each one of those solutions The two that we just saw, the two that we're about to see, are available for use through the platforms of Matach CET, the digital platforms that exists and integrate these solutions into them. And that actually brings me to talk about that idea of how a platform that fosters innovation is not complete unless it offers some way, and CodeMonkey was also a perfect example for that, some way for that innovation that is created there to then reach the target audience and reach it in large scale and in a sustainable and easy way to access. I think that's the case that happened with us, and this is definitely also the case with the 4 solutions that we are seeing here now. So the next thing, which I think is very, let's say, almost something obvious that we're all aspiring to, because we're experiencing social networks so much in our everyday life, and so it really demands also happening in the educational world. You know, where does that social network become social learning? And for that, I'd like to call Vicky Weiss from BAGROUP.
For over 15 years, Nachshon has been running an online mentoring program promoting students in the periphery to succeed in advanced STEM final exams. 3 years ago, we wanted to extend the scope of the program and reach as many students as possible. This is why we decided to use WhatsApp. Why WhatsApp? Well, because the students are there. This is how we did it. We created a 3-month program before every final exam. We opened 100 WhatsApp groups with 100 students each and 1 teacher that led each group. We wanted to create a safe environment for learning, and that means keeping the anonymity of the students. So we made sure students didn't know other students within the group. We provided 3 lessons a week in Hebrew, math, and English studies, 1 hour each. The WhatsApp platforms allows a non-stop learning. Both students and teachers were active 24/7. Not only that, the students engaged in several aspects. They learned, supported, and motivated each other. The WhatsApp groups generated over 1 million messages, a treasure of data, so we datafied it. I would like to focus on these insights from the datafication process and what was implemented as a result. Positive messages that included emojis, stickers, GIFs, and photos increased the level of activity and engagement. Based on that, we trained the teachers to use these positive WhatsApp conversation methods. We found out that short and clear questions increased the level of activity and interaction around them. So we trained the teachers to simplify complex questions and design the WhatsApp messages differently using WhatsApp features. On top of that, we were amazed to see that when teachers shared their methods to answering questions, step by step, it challenged the students and led to a deeper understanding of the subject. And last but not least, we found out that the most common word used in the groups was thank you. In the next 2 years, we plan on reaching each and every student nationwide, teaching all subjects using WhatsApp.
In a way, the world of cybersecurity and the world of EdTech, when it comes to startup innovation here in Israel, are somewhat each other's opposites. Cyber is so hot. People come with a presentation to their venture capitalist and raise, according to amazing valuations, just based on an idea. In EdTech, it's almost not possible to raise venture capital here, and everybody kind of argues with the premise of even making money in that space. So, and that's only one of the aspects in which cyber and education are so different. However, there is definitely space in which there can be new solutions when it comes to education and cyber together, educating for cybersecurity protection, and that's where I'd like to invite Oitzul to talk about Cybint.
So I'm Roy, I'm the CEO and founder of Cybint Solutions, and I'll talk about cybersecurity and the human factor. So as you probably know, the world is dealing with millions of cyber attacks per day. anywhere between 30 to 50 to 60 million cyber attacks per day. And we know that no company is immune to these attacks. So if you think about the cost of cyber crimes, last year there were about 650 billion US dollars, and these are expected to grow up to $1 trillion in the next few years. And what's interesting, because we are talking about education here, is actually when we think about cybersecurity, the biggest problem right now is actually the human factor. So the human factor is right now the biggest challenge we are dealing with in the cybersecurity space, with two main problems. There are three here, but I'll focus on two main problems. One is the reskilling problem. There is millions of jobs that are unfilled because there are not enough qualified people. So how do you get more people into this market? So this is about higher education and even high schools in some places where the market needs young people to go into this space. And the next problem is also what we call the skills gap, how to train people in organizations to be qualified with cybersecurity because this space is changing so rapidly. So you can see the millions of unfilled jobs worldwide, and you can see that Fortune 500 companies, most of them report that most of their employees are underqualified. So the concept of Cybint was in a way born in the Israeli military, where we have to take 18-year-olds without a lot of experience and train them in a matter of a few months to become the leading cybersecurity analyst in one of the best units in the world. And to apply this and to make someone ready to work in just a few months, we use what we call accelerated learning methods. So at Cybint, we develop a training platform. And the training platform is first and foremost adaptive. So you not only it's not one size fits all. Your learning path, what we call your learning journey, is being adaptive to A, your specific role, if it's in an organization, or the specific position you need to hold, and B, to your specific gaps. So eventually you get a learning path and you know your specific position in the learning path at any certain time. B, around accelerated learning, the learning needs to be authentic. It needs to be hands-on. It needs to be practical, not theoretical. So with e-learning, with online learning, we can introduce simulations and virtual machines and other environments so the learner can actually practice in live time with real threats. The third thing is about curriculum. When I've discussed with many higher education institutions in the United States, they talk about curriculum. The problem with curriculum is that it's being updated if it's a good institution, once a year or 2 years. We believe that cybersecurity curriculum needs to be updated on a weekly basis. So the system is being updated on a weekly basis based on real threats coming from the market, and also integrating technologies that are coming from the market. Thinking about interactive learning, we not only provide e-learning experience, but also, like the WhatsApp example, different types of ways to interact between learners. We integrated Zoom inside for live webinars. We integrated Slack inside for discussions between learners, so learners can actually acquire real information in real time. And eventually, for an organization, whether it's a university or a business, the data of all the learners is going up, so the executives, the managers, the deans can see specifically the scope of threats and deal with the main problems that, or understand what are the weakest links and biggest gaps in this matter. Because what we believe is that other than the corporate training and the higher education training, which is very important, in a way, the focus of this conference, not only, but the focus of this conference is around K-12. And in discussion with CET here in Israel, we came to the conclusion that you can't just start talking about cybersecurity in higher education. And we want to introduce concept of online privacy, digital literacy, online safety, etc. from a young age, the end of elementary, start of middle school. So together with CET, we are now developing a gamified environment of cybersecurity. And this gamified environment will allow kids from young age to acquire skills in cybersecurity, first as a pre-cyber, just understanding of their threats and how to protect themselves in a gamified way by solving solutions, solving missions, etc. We've been working with many organizations worldwide, businesses and higher education. And of course, if there are any questions, I will be available later today, and we have a booth outside. So thank you so much for your time.